Hey everyone, welcome to the Walk to Wealth podcast. If you're tuning in on YouTube or any of the podcast directories, make sure to give us a follow so you can never miss a beat. We're going to keep on bringing super special guests like the one we have here today. Scott, for anyone that may not know you, tell us your elevator pitch. Who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, so I'm a 6-time gym owner, so I own 6 gyms. And what I primarily do now that I've kind of moved away from that, they run on their own, is I'm a business coach primarily for personal trainers, primarily for gym owners to help them achieve that level of success that I have earned, but it took me a good decade to get there.
Yeah, amazing. And, tell us a little bit about your Walk to Wealth. Before all the gyms, before the coaching, before this all started to flourish and manifest, tell us about your Walk to Wealth. Where did this story all begin?
I was broke for most of my life.
There's a start.
I grew up in the Midwest and it was just to a normal suburban family, right? And the only path for me laid out was get good grades, go to a good school, get a nice, safe, stable job with a giant corporation, and then die. Like that was kind of the path, the only path that I knew that was kind of laid out for me. And so I did that, right? I got straight A's. I got into U of I, and my degree was in economics, and I started working in the corporate world. And maybe even after like that first year or two, I'm like, I hate my life. Hate it. And like, I can see the ceiling is like this low on where I can go. And I'm like, okay, so I get promoted 2 levels. Where am I? I'm living some place I don't want to live in, doing things I hate. That doesn't matter to anybody. I could get hit by a bus. I'm still not going to matter. And I'm like, screw it. I'm changing it. I am changing it. This is not what I wanted for my life. So I quit my corporate job. I loaded 2 dogs in a car with all my earthly possessions and I moved out to Arizona. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to do at that time, but I decided to get into something that I loved, which was health and fitness. I don't know what I want to do. Nothing excites me, but let me start doing something that I actually enjoy. And that impacted my life in a beneficial way. So I got into personal training. Obviously, a little bit of a step down from what I was making and stuff like that, but I loved it. And I'm in a place where there's beautiful women and palm trees and pools everywhere. And that was my quarter life crisis because I was probably like 24, 5, something like that. And that was the beginning of it. So what my parents did teach me was a phenomenal work ethic. And the fact that you don't need a nice car or anything to, I don't need the toys. And so I had a very small budget and I lived accordingly. And so I was able to break off from that. And 4 years later, I got experience and promoted in there. I bought a failing gym in the Phoenix area, Phoenix, Arizona. And I started there and brought that into success, is cash flowing. And then I expanded to some multiple locations. I had a lot of setbacks. I nearly lost my ass multiple times. And I, wasn't making a whole lot of money for a while until then I was. And I think it was around COVID when I really worked. I started hiring a lot more of coaches a little bit before COVID, right? Business coaches, and spent a lot of money on it. But I learned these skills that started stacking and stacking and stacking and stacking. When COVID hit, I created like a mentorship in a brick and mortar fitness business. It worked. I duplicated everywhere and it just started crushing it. And then that's when other gym owners were like, what the hell are you doing? Can you help me with it? And so I got into coaching completely by accident, but now I'm working with dozens and dozens of gym owners across the world now.
That's amazing. And you kind of touched upon your parents and some of the things that they instilled in you in terms of hard work. What were some of the conversations around money like growing up in your household? What was that like?
Money. Okay. So my parents both were farmers growing up. And right. And so not a lot of money to go around. Back to the point where literally my mom would make her school clothes. Right. So you didn't go to the dentist unless like something was hurting really bad, that kind of thing. Right. So they grew up not having much, which was good because I never had much. I never was a spoiled kid at all. Right. If it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing. Like, and we didn't go on vacations hardly at all, for good or bad. But yeah, money. So this is what I had to unlearn at a certain point, John, was I grew up with a big scarcity mindset on money. And the pros of that are, even when I started making more money, I didn't enhance my lifestyle to always match it, right? That afforded me the opportunity to get in business for myself where I had to have a huge pay cut, pay hit, and allowed me to do that stuff. If I had always matched my lifestyle with my income, I would have been in a bad situation if I wanted to start my own business. So that was good. But because I had this scarcity mindset, my parents were always saving, and not enjoying the money at all and not investing it back in themselves and their education. That's kind of my mindset. And so it took me 6 years of being a business owner before I hired somebody because I was too cheap to do it. Right. And I was roll up your sleeves and do it yourself. Right. And that'll get you so far, but then that'll be the thing that got you to that opportunity. That'll be the thing that holds you back from breaking through to the next level.
Yeah, no, I love that you brought that up. And let me ask you then, because you said you also too had a quarter life crisis, right? At 24, 25, as you're already experiencing what people don't experience until their 50s or 60s, right? So Tell us a little bit about that. What was that like packing up with your dogs and loading up the car and fleeing all the way over to Arizona? What was that like mentally? What was your emotions like? How were you feeling around that time? What was going on in life?
Oh my God. So I was really depressed, actually. I didn't know it at that time. Okay. But I was really depressed. It's like the honeymoon with my job was over. I didn't like what I was doing. I wasn't passionate about it. I didn't know where I want to go. I just know this is not what I want for my life. I was really unhappy with where I was living and what I was doing. And so I visited a friend out here in Arizona. I'm like, wow, this place is amazing. And I visited in the summer when it was really hot, but it was still awesome. Okay. And then I visited in the winter. I'm like, that's it. I'm gone. I'm just doing it. Right. And yeah, it was, you think it would be scarier because I didn't have a whole lot in savings at that point. But for me, yeah, that's a lot of risk. And I didn't really know anybody out here either. I had one friend out here. And on one hand, it was very risky to quit your corporate job and just go out. But on the other hand, I think the riskiest thing was not taking risks. Because if I just decided to go this normal route that I knew I was going to be happy at, I know for certain where I'm going to be. I know for certain where I'll end up in 10 years, in 20 years, in 30 years. And if I'm not happy with that, taking the safe route and doing that is the riskiest thing. I'm for sure guaranteed not to like my life. So for me to pack up and move, it was kind of scary, but exhilarating at the same time. And it legitimately was the only option. I didn't realize how unhappy I was until quite a few years later. And I nearly got fired from my job because I was so unmotivated to get to work. And I worked out I had an outside kind of territory sales job. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really have anybody overseeing me a lot. I had to work with somebody maybe twice a month. And for a lot of people, that'd be a dream job. But for me, because nothing really mattered, it just wasn't what I wanted to do. And I nearly got fired for really not putting in the effort. And rightfully so. So, I was just kind of starting over and it was risky, but at the same time, it's just something I had to do.
Yeah. So let's get into the conversation for today, right? So you're at that quarter life crisis, you just picked up and left. And now it's, it took a while for you to get things going, but throughout your experiences, throughout your journey, you've been able to kind of come up with a strategy that anyone can follow to achieve massive success, financial and otherwise, right, in our life, because that's something that you believe we're called to do. That's our duty, right? And that's something that I genuinely believe. I always talk about myself. Like, if you don't become the person who you're meant to become, there's millions of people that you probably will never meet that you've let down. But then the question that usually comes up is, where do I begin? So tell us, where do we start?
Yeah. So it's funny because there's so many different ways you can go, but we're all different, In my case, I decided to do something I was passionate about because I do believe in anything, there's going to be things that you don't like to do. So I'm not suggesting people go out and quit their jobs or this or that. There's always going to be things that you don't want to do that you just have to do because guess what? That's life, right? But at the same time, I was working for Philip Morris, okay? Big tobacco. Because at that point, I partied and I smoked, not tons, but, all that kind of stuff. I started getting really into health and fitness at that time. And I'm like, well, what I'm doing doesn't really align to this, right? At all. And I'm like, I just don't want to do this anymore. It doesn't I don't feel good about it. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm like, and fitness, I changed my body and my mind so much over the last 2 years because of that was like a gift to me. I felt alive, felt like a superhuman version of myself. And I'm like, you know what? I want to do that for other people. That's why I got into it. I think the biggest thing is contributing to the world in some amazing way, big or small. And if you do that, and if you constantly look to improve, I think you're just going to make it. And there's an order of operations. Number one, you have to invest in yourself. There are so many of us who stop education after college or after a trade or whatever it is. Those that continue to spend time and money investing in themselves, in new skill sets, in their mindset, those are the ones you're going to open up so many doors. So number one, invest in yourself. Number two, invest in your business or career, whichever route you're going. And then number three, then take the excess cash flows that you're now making more within your career or making more in your business as a result of those investments, and then invest that in other means. That progress might seem slow, and you might not know how it's going to happen for you. Mm-hmm. But if you keep putting yourself in positions where you're learning and you're surrounding yourself, this is the big thing. This is what you're doing. You're surrounding yourself with people who have done it and who are successful. And if you keep doing that, opportunities and ideas will present themselves that you don't know. You might not know how you're going to get there, but if you keep doing what you're doing right now, John, you'll find that path. You'll find that opportunity. You'll find that way, and it's going to happen for you.
Yeah, definitely. I always say that opportunities are everywhere. And the only reason we can't see them is because we don't have the knowledge to look at things through the right lens, right? And so let's get in a little bit deeper into the first one, investing in yourself, right? We live in a day and age where the guru, everyone's, self-help. And it's like, now it's like so much self-help that people are starting to get a little skeptical of it a little bit now. So investing in yourself, I know you said it took you 6 years to invest in a business coach to help you out in your kind of things like, and what kind of advice, could you give to when it comes to like investing in yourself for people that are looking to start? I got a couple friends. One of my good boys I actually grew up playing Call of Duty with him. We went to high school, middle school together, Boys and Girls Club together. He's actually in the personal training space. So like, nice. What kind of advice would you give to, people my age that are looking to kind of get started, even if they're in the personal training space or not, but like to invest in themselves and not, get caught up in the self-help. Let me read every book on earth and never do anything, but like actually get it started and get it going.
Yeah. Very, very good question. Because do you have to immediately go and hire somebody for $8,000? No, you do not. Right? Nor did I have that kind of money and resources, right, at the time. And I think, what really resonated with me was Stoic philosophy a lot. And this is in so many ways, because it really teaches you to really just control what you can control. Focus on what you can control, which is your actions. There are so many things that happen to us, right, that are outside of our control, and it's not worth spending any time or worry or anger or anything on. Just focus on what you can do. So stoicism was a big piece, especially as my business was crumbling around me. The worst points, that's what brought me out. And there's a great book by Ryan Holiday, The Obstacle is the Way. Reading that and listening to that on Audible 9 times during the toughest points of my life is maybe the only thing that got me through it. And you'll just take my word for it, like invest the money, the $20 or whatever it is, read that book. It's very profound, and read it over and over and over again, because it's going to mean different things to you every time you read it and in different stages of your life. It'll help you get through and not give up on yourself. It's profound stuff. Armed with that, you can overcome everything you need to overcome. And you'll actually see all these obstacles and setbacks. It's what it is. The obstacle that's preventing you from getting it, that becomes the way. These difficulties that you're facing make you better, make you smarter, make you more resilient. And that very obstacle is actually what propels you forward and gets you to where you want to be. So that's such a good place for people to start and start cutting their teeth. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And you kind of mentioned too, you read it 9 times, right? A lot of people at first thought can't make sense of that. And as you kind of mentioned, no matter how many times you read a book or listen to a book or a speaker or a speech or whatever it may be, take a class or course or coaching, whenever we take that again, we're never in the same spot in life, right? And so we always get something different out of it. And so I love that you mentioned that. And I kind of wanted to touch on, you mentioned stoicism and just philosophy in general. I am not, I don't have the most in-depth knowledge in terms of like philosophy, but I love the way of thought that philosophy and the different types of philosophy bring about, right? And just like a philosophical thinking in general. Is there any other philosophical advice that you kind of help push you through? I know you mentioned stoicism. Is there any other ones that kind of like helped really, guide your thought process and, guide you through some of those dark times that you kind of mentioned you were going through?
There's something else that I consider financial philosophy that I think can open up some eyes. So
like Jim Rohn?
I'm not, I still have to dive into more Jim Rohn stuff. I haven't, believe it or not. I know some of his quotes. I'm familiar with that, but I haven't dug into some of his stuff. But in terms of like, I talked about a scarcity mindset with money, right? Like it's something that you have to hoard and could run out and this and that. Well, I tell you what, like one of the things I can give you the most comfort is when you can rely on your skill sets to be able to generate money. It takes a while to get to that level where you can understand that and feel it and know it. But let's see what's over there on my shelf. Killing Sacred Cows. Killing Sacred Cows is what I consider a philosophical book on money and mindset, along with like Robert Kiyosaki's probably like Rich Dad, Poor Dad and Cash Flow Quadrant. Those are very real things, but it'll get a little bit more nitty gritty in Killing Sacred Cows and teach you a little bit about how you can retrain your brain to think about money, how you do look at money. Because at the end of the day, that's what I help other personal trainers and gym owners overcome. We had this fear about charging high rates, right? And I'm able to take somebody who's never sold anything more than $110 a month group training membership. And 6 weeks later, not only did he more than double his group rates, but he's selling 9-week transformational programs for $2,000. Okay. He even sold an executive one. This is literally, I think it's a month and a half after he started. Executive program, 9 weeks for $5,000. He's never sold anything more than $110. And you have to rethink because immediately we were like, oh my God, $5,000. Who would ever buy? Because we're selling out of our own pockets, right? That's a lot of money to us. I would never spend that. Who the hell would ever spend that? Even if you've got the money, right? But that's not how it works. So that book really kind of opens up your eyes to a few things. And that's such a really good book because I am not, when it comes to retirement, I don't think of that traditionally. The hoarding, accumulation of things, let me accumulate a nest egg worth X amount and then I'll retire. And hopefully I don't spend that all before I die. Right. And and I'm going to postpone enjoying my wealth now. Right. To save so I don't run out. That's that scarcity mindset. And abundance mindset is a little bit different. And cash flow investing is a little bit different. And we haven't touched on that, but I've made some cash flow investments that have just paid off huge dividends. Yeah,
no, I love that you mentioned that because I hate the traditional way of viewing things in terms of, that's also partially why I didn't get a Roth IRA. Because it's like, as you said, like sitting in that, it's like, yeah, it's a tax, deferred and things like that. But it's like, you really expect me to wait until I'm 65 to try to take this out to enjoy it. I only got one life left to live, right? It's like, get the cash flow now so you can afford the lifestyle that you want to live and not have to worry about whether or not that, then saves or the market doesn't crash or if your account doesn't get closed or hacked or whatever it may be. If you get the cash flow coming in, that can help pay off whatever you got going in, right?
Absolutely. It doesn't take long to generate enough cash flow to handle all your living expenses. It doesn't. But if you rely on like accumulating all this net worth and just relying on the stock market to provide that for you, yeah, you're going to be there a long time. But the great thing about cash flow is a faucet. Whereas like if you have an accumulation in your, your retirement accounts, IRAs or 401ks or whatever have you, you've got a jug of water and you're pouring it out every year. Hopefully you don't run out. But cash flow is like, let's turn on a faucet and that thing's just going to keep spitting out money month after month after month, regardless of anything.
Yeah. So let's talk about it, right? So we talked about a little bit about, our personal mental philosophy, like in terms of stoicism. And we talked about reframing our financial philosophy with, the Robert Kiyosaki's and the Killing Sacred Cows, right? now let's talk about our business, right? We're prepared now. We read some philosophy books. We took some time to invest in ourselves, right? What's the next step after that, right? What do we do after, we got all this knowledge now. We're ready to go, ready to get after it. What's the next step?
Yeah, it's going to depend on what somebody does. And I'm obviously biased towards entrepreneurship. I love it. That being said, I love either entrepreneurship or being in a position, maybe it's in small business, where you can kind of become an intrapreneur as well. But something where there's room for growth is what I'm a huge fan of, because I think that's where people can really shine I think that's where people really come alive. Excitement is a very undervalued thing with work. And, it's, I couldn't quit my job or this or that or blah, blah, blah. Maybe I don't want to. That's fine. But you could also look at what you could do. What do you have an interest in that maybe somebody else out there is making money on? Could you do that? Like, for instance, my wife just had surgery. We had her cousin fly in from England to help out, because I got a 2-year-old, I got a 6-year-old. And she's got her full-time job. She loves like home organizing. And, there's that one show, somebody actually has a TV show on that, right? She goes into your home and gets you super organized with things. And she's blown up. I mean, I bet she charges a friggin' mint to come into your home and do that now. Right? She's got like a book and she's got a TV show. Why couldn't you do that? She loves that stuff. She's like, you know what? I think I saw somebody on Instagram who does that in England. I'm like, go to her site and the other major big person, look at what they post, right? If they have a website or an email list, get on the email list, right? What are they emailing you? Call them. What are their rates, right? Maybe you could work for them. Maybe you could see what they're doing and just do the same thing and see if you can pick up some clients on the weekends. Right? Look at their ad copy. Don't recreate it from scratch. Look at what they're doing well. See if you
hack them, right?
Improve on it, right? It could be that easy. It could be where you just pick up a couple clients a month, but then it could be where that picks up. And eventually you got all these people and eventually you quit your job. You don't know, right?
Exactly.
There's so many ways that you just don't know. What you have to do is just look for opportunities and act as if. Don't wait until the planets align. You know what I mean? Just take action now. You never know where things are going to lead.
No,
say yes to something. You know what I mean? Say yes to something, and you might feel really uncomfortable or underqualified, but say yes to something and give it a shot. If you don't take any shots, you're never going to find these opportunities.
100%. I love that you brought that up. And I can't help but ask you, right? Because you pretty much described funnel hacking, right? You want to funnel hack these people. And I see the 2 Comma Club award in the background. So, it's funny coincidental, because I recently got introduced to the world of Russell Brunson and ClickFunnels, like literally maybe 4 weeks ago, right? When ClickFunnels 2.0 just came out. And so I'm kind of learning about all this stuff. And you're essentially mentioning, pretty much describing funnel hacking, right? Go in depth, go see what they're doing, and then figure out what they're doing and ethically model what they got going on for yourself so that you can provide the service that you want to provide to the people that you're called to serve, right? So what other tips that, while we're on the topic of ClickFunnels, let's talk about how that can help grow a business a little bit, partially because I'm interested in that stuff, but two, also, when it comes to funnels, we all need them to start a business and to provide a service and to get traffic into our dream client into our business. So let's talk about that a little bit. Any advice you got there?
Yeah, it's always harder than you think. It's always harder than you think. Just don't give up. So yeah, I use ClickFunnels software and stuff like that. But I think it doesn't matter what you use, whether it's ClickFunnels or you use this or that. And those tools and software, some are better and some are changing and all over the place. But I think one of the best values that ClickFunnels has is Russell Brunson is a marketing genius. And his books are really good, like .com Secrets, Expert Secrets. And Expert Secrets is one that I've read and listened to, I don't know, 7 or 8. There you go, my man. I love it. 7 or 8 times, right? And it's really good because it's hard. Like, you have to read things over and over because it seems so simple, but then you go to do it yourself and you're like, it's really hard to do. And you don't know where to go, even though in the book, it's like, oh my God, but that was so easy. It takes time and reps. It's like the Matrix code coming down the screen. Right? you make sense of it. But then all of a sudden you keep doing it. And then all of a sudden, oh, you can read the code. You know what I mean? You just have to keep doing it, keep getting exposure. I don't care if you don't make a single dollar for 6 years, right? You just got to keep doing it. Nobody ever got good at anything by just trying it for like a month. It just doesn't happen, And so they've got some really good stuff on marketing, and even some stuff I'm rereading now. I'm like, oh, I get it now. It only took me 7 years, but I get it now, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And he's got a thing where it's like funnel hacking, like see who's successful doing this, and then just look at what they do, right? Go to their website, look at the copy on there. Are they running Facebook ads? Did they target you on Facebook? What is that copy that's compelling, right? Sign up for their email list. What are they sending out every week, right? What are those pain points they're hitting on? What are those things? Because that's stuff that you can then take and make it your own and use out in the marketplace and maybe improve on, right? But don't recreate the wheel every single time. You go to school, you learn math as we've learned it for centuries, thousands of years starting to hand this stuff. You don't go and create your own version of math, right? That would be dumb. So when it comes to a business, look at what's already working out there and then start there. Don't start from scratch.
Yeah. And so let me ask you, right? Because one thing that Russell talks about too is finding that dream client, right? And when you start a business, there's a thing, right? Not all money is good money, right? And there's definitely bad money meaning clients that may give you massive headaches, or clients that maybe, you shouldn't be working with, or you shouldn't spend your time, engaging with. So how do you find those people that you want to work with? And not in terms of like finding the traffic to bring to your business, but in terms of like defining that avatar. Like how do you define that avatar to work with? And how do you kind of, once you find them, differentiate yourself from all the other businesses that may be in your?
Yeah, it takes time to find that avatar. So if you don't quite know who that is necessarily, you'll learn that over time as you start working with different types of people. And then you'll learn who your product and service really works for and who doesn't have a work. So it shapes over time, right? And at first, try and work with everybody that wants to work with you. But after a bit of time, you're like, oh, okay, this doesn't really work for them. Or these guys, I realize this personality type is a pain in the butt. So moving forward, but you don't know that until you start just getting out there, right? Then you start whittling it down and stuff like that. But yeah, really, really take a look. And after a while, you really realize, oh, these people love this or they kill it. Then you know to attack that. Maybe they're attorneys. Maybe they're this. Maybe they're that. Maybe they're this age group or that age group. But as you start getting out there, look who those potential people that are interested are. What are their similarities? And that's going to give you a hint. But it's going to take you a while to iron it out. It's going to take you a while to massage it out. Let the market speak. Because sometimes we go in there either with a target demographic in mind or something like that, or with this is an idea of what I need this product to be. But you need to see there's your opinion versus what the market tells you. Always be able to adapt. Some of the business owners that don't do very well, they want it their way, and they're not going to change it based on what they're seeing in real time.
Yeah, I think Russell brought up the story one time of like, what was it, like was it BlackBerry or I think it was BlackBerry, and how they didn't want to change, and Apple came out with the iPhone and then just blew them out of the water. And next thing you know, no one has BlackBerry phones anymore. Everyone has an iPhone, and it's long gone. Let me ask you then, right? So you find your ideal avatar, and it comes from experience, is what you're saying, but also people bring up the idea that if you speak to everyone, you speak to no one. So how do you kind of get over that dilemma where it's like when you're starting off, you don't know really who to work for, but if you don't know who to work for, you're kind of just having very general messaging, and that usually doesn't do the best job of attracting people. Mm-hmm. So like, how do you kind of get over that dilemma of like, I don't know who's my target avatar is, but also it's like, I also don't have any business right now. So it's like, how do I even get the messaging out there to tell people about this track? Hopefully someone.
Yeah. And it will really depend are you a local business versus are you a virtual internet-based business? Because those will change your tactics a lot. If you're serving a radius, you can't really niche down too far, right? So if you're a personal trainer and you're doing the brick and mortar stuff, you can kind of go after them, So you want to have content that does both, basically. You want to have content that gets out to kind of everybody in your 5 to 10 mile radius. And then you're also going to have some that gets out to the specific people that you're working with, right? Austin Garber, he got in with like single moms, right? So some of his content drop was specifically for that versus some was more general. So algorithms, the problem with social media is sometimes the algorithms don't like super niching down, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can do some more general, but also sprinkle in some stuff geared specifically for that person, because that will like hyper connect with that person while not turning everything off, right? But if you're an internet-based business where you're not bound by a radius, you can afford to niche down a lot more, right? And always take a look at, and Russell Brunson kind of talks about this, is when looking at that, creating an audience is really hard. It's really hard from scratch. Sometimes it's easier to go to a place that has a certain audience and provide a solution for them. So let me give you an example, if I can think of one off the top of my head. CrossFit gym owners, right? There are groups where 5,000 of them congregate in, right? If I can get into that Facebook group and I can add value by answering questions, now I need to be a bit of an expert to do that, right? And then I have something that they don't have, but they could really benefit from or use. Well, I can talk about that and bring that up, and I can generate interest from that, right? I'm just going to a place where they already are. I'm not trying to create it myself. So that's a good way to be able to kind of get in front of a lot of people and build your audience and not have to do it from scratch.
Yeah,
that's really hard to do it from scratch.
Yeah, that's some amazing advice. So that kind of, sparked some curiosity, meaning to ask you, how do you kind of do it, right? You moved to Arizona. You only knew your friend that you had living there. You picked up and left. And in the health and wellness space, it's if not more saturated, just as saturated as the personal finance / like wealth building space that I'm in. So how are you able to make your mark in an entirely different area after you're picking up and leaving?
Yeah, you're right. It's so saturated, especially out here, where the sun's always shining and stuff. So, I got my chops and learned my trade by working for Lifetime Fitness, a larger company. They were really good. I got promoted to an assistant manager, became the department head. So I had like 25-ish trainers on staff. I wasn't going to be happy working for this company either. So, but I got my pay up to, again, where I'm making a good amount. And then I'm like, but I need to get out of here. I'm just not satisfied. And again, money's not everything. So the cool thing was I didn't increase my living expenses a whole lot. So I found this failing business and bought it, right? So now I go from making like $8,000 a month down to making like negative $3,000 a month. But it gave me something to build on. And I wasn't that great at marketing at the beginning. I just wasn't. But I cared and I put in a lot of freaking effort. And that overcame a lot of deficiencies that I had, and I sucked at marketing. And so just by caring and treating people well, I was able to achieve some good success. And then also by learning how to charge a premium rate, this is so important for everybody out there listening. Because what happens is most people in my situation, and I kind of did this at the beginning too, but they're like, okay, what should I set my rates at? I'm like, well, here's what these people are doing. So let me do that, but go a little bit under, right? That's our initial gut instinct is let me be more competitive by doing it cheaper. But that's what everyone else has already done, right? So you're getting these market prices that go down, 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 down. And especially with fitness, which is hyper competitive, it's become this commodity market. And unless like you're a Planet Fitness, where you don't want to play that freaking game, you need to charge premium prices. You need to develop the competence, you need the certainty, and you need to over deliver on customer service to back that up. And it makes it so much easier. By not playing the volume game, it's infinitely easier to get ahead and start making some really good money.
So then let me ask you, right? Because I kind of know this just because, as I said, I've been kind of hooked on this ClickFunnels stuff and learning. Russell Brunson is also a super energetic guy and great teacher. So I genuinely just like people that talk fast and are super energetic, entrepreneurial people. But he talks about creating an offer, right? Which I think is what you're kind of getting at, which is why you could charge that premium. And when you're charging a product or service based off price, you're a commodity, right? He always talks about being against a commodity. So, from your own words, how could we start providing offers to people so that now we're not competing on prices and so that we can charge the prices that, we're actually worth and not just competing on a price and trying to play the Planet Fitness game, which will only get you so far.
For sure. So number one thing, okay, stop talking about your features. Stop talking about the how, rather. Right? You need to touch on some of that. But it's really, what is this person's pain that's in front of me? What do they really want? Okay. You have those two pieces. What you're selling should bridge that gap. Okay. The real needs, not just what they're telling you, right? Because if they call up one of my studios, in their heads, they're like, okay, I feel unhappy about myself. Therefore, I need to get in shape. Therefore, I need to work out. And then they'll Google some stuff. They'll call, how much is it? That's all they know to ask. They don't want to. And then we just say how much it is, or like try and build value about how our workouts are great and this and that, blah, blah, blah. They're not there to work out. They're not the only freaks like me like to work out, right? Everyone else, they want something different, right? They want to have more self-esteem. They want to have more self-confidence. They want to have more social confidence. It's not just losing that 25 pounds, right? It's about making themselves a priority in life, feeling like they're in control, feeling like they're sexy again, feeling like, right? All those kind of things. So really, I get to that kind of pain. Like, how long have they been struggling with this? How's it affecting them? Right? Right? Not just, oh, yeah, I feel bad, but like, how's it really affecting the way you feel about yourself? Right? Has it ever impacted you have you ever disengaged from social situations just because you're not comfortable with how you look? Right? Any of those, kind of getting uncomfortable into that pain. And then what's that dream? Right? What's that vision of that future where you just, God, I want to be that person. I want to be that version of John. Right? And how badass would it be to be there? And then instead of me talking about the intricacies of my workouts and intricacies of my nutrition plans, which is, they don't care, it's going to go over their heads. All I do is talk about how this solution, forget sessions and memberships. Nobody wants them. This program is designed for people just like you. Right? And that journey that they're looking for, that's what this program is designed to do.
Yeah, amazing.
Right?
So like,
yeah. And if I've been unhappy with myself for the last 9 years, and I've tried 13 times and I've just gained and lost the same 15 to 20 pounds over and over and over, right? I don't feel confident, right? And it affects the relationship that I have, in my dating life and this and that. And you paint that dream of they look like that Men's Health cover model, right? But more importantly, internally, you're totally in control of your life. You have consistent energy throughout the days, and you just feel like that general badass that you want to be. Right? Now, that's a compelling, I want that. Give me that. So in other words, what I'm trying to say is sell the vacation, not the flights. That's how you command premium price point, by selling a freaking solution, because nobody gives a shit how it happens.
I never heard it worded that way. Sell the vacation. That's the first, and that's the quote I definitely am going to be incorporating into what I've got going on right now. Because I just recently started a social media marketing agency, and so and it's coincidentally is also the same time where I kind of found out about ClickFunnels, and so I'm kind of figuring out all this stuff. And as you're saying this, I'm just thinking about like how I could try and incorporate this into the things that I'm offering now when I talk to these other realtors and stuff like that. Because I'm also a realtor myself, so I kind of know the game already. I got an unfair advantage where it's like I'm also a real estate agent, right? And so now that you mentioned selling the vacation, right? And you mentioned getting into that pain, right? When you're getting into something, like for example, I kind of know real estate pain points because I'm also a realtor myself. So it's like but for like someone who's trying to start something that they're passionate about but don't really have the most experience with, how do you get to knowing those pain points, right? How do you find those pain points? Because everyone could say like, hey, yeah, I just want to lose 15 pounds to get abs. But like, how do you kind of get into the mind of the people so that you can know that, oh, it's actually not the abs, it's the insecurity. It's the wearing my shirt when I go swimming. It's the, not going to social events in the summertime, right? It's good. Like, so how do you kind of get into that mindset of the people that you want to work with when you don't really have the insider experience?
You've got to ask uncomfortable questions. And that can be difficult. because what happens is people are going to come with just this surface level thing, right? We all kind of had this armor built up, right? And not even just with other people, it's with ourselves too. Sometimes it's not just we're kind of a little bit dishonest with other people. Sometimes we're dishonest with ourselves. And we don't know. We don't want to confront things. We just kind of want to stuff things down, right? So, but think of it this way. Like, let's say you hired Tony Robbins to be your coach, your life coach. And you come to him and he asks you a question. And you kind of give him a bullshit answer, right? Is he going to let you is he going to be like, okay, yeah, just take that at surface level? Or is he going to say, challenge you to dig deeper, not accept that the BS that you're telling yourself and him right there, right? So asking uncomfortable questions is a skill set. And I don't mean to be invasive or a jerk or something like that at all, right? But learning how to ask uncomfortable questions and not take that surface level answer, to dig deeper, to pry further, that's a little bit of an art. And if you get good at that, that's like a meta skill, just like public speaking or sales. It'll enhance every area of your life. If you can learn how to really do that with people, you'll be better on all fronts. Any kind of conflict resolution at business, with employees, with your family, anywhere you'll get better at if you can learn how to do that. And then you can truly help people. And because you need to be able to understand them. So I think even in sales, like it's a little bit, you're going to have to talk and present. There's the term for that, but you're really going to have to listen better.
Yeah, that's some super amazing advice. So we kind of talked about so far investing in ourselves, right, with the stoicism, with the financial philosophy, and getting our mindset right. And now we kind of talked about a little bit about getting ourselves in a spot where we could start a business and provide some value and bridge the gap and sell the vacation, right? We talked about some of the business practice and business mindset strategies that we got to have in place. Now it's time for, what's the long game? How do we start getting in terms of that? Because, we can't do this forever, right? I mean, some of us, for example, like Russell, I'm not, I wouldn't be surprised if he worked till like 95, right? Doing ClickFunnels, right? There's some people like, at a time, some of us may be for, just living the life we always wanted to, maybe starting a family in the future, maybe, giving back. How do we begin thinking about, especially at this age, early 20s, how do we even begin to think about the long game, right? When we're so early on in our stages of life.
Yeah, everything is scalable. Like, look for leverage when you can get leverage, right? It may not seem like there's a clear path to it now. So just focus on making money, focus on cash flow. And then if you are getting to entrepreneurship, the beautiful thing, if you know the cash flow quadrant, right? There's employee, self-employed, business owner, and investor. Business owners and investors get leverage with their time and their money. So it's hard to move into self-employed into that, but you can. You really can. The key is you need to get leverage. You need to be able to start making money when you're not doing all the work. And that could be hiring somebody. It could be having an informational product or this or that, right? That sells when you're not actively working. That's really how you want to do it. And you might not know where it's at now, but this is why you need to keep investing in yourself, your business, your career. Because then you'll learn these things. Oh, he does that. Man, maybe I could do that, right? And that's why it's good to get in masterminds and get in these other groups, because right now, the most dangerous thing is the fact that you don't know what you don't know, right? And the dangerous thing for me is I don't know what I don't know. So, because it's impossible, right? So that's why it's really good to keep networking and keep talking to people who are more successful, who are the next level above you, because that will show you different ways you can gain leverage. And because, I mean, if I just stuck to my gyms right now, I'm functionally retired. Like I don't do any, like I'm good. Right. And I can sustain an amazing lifestyle and I'm good. I don't have to work at all. I don't enjoy not working. I can tell you that because I got there and then I was actually really unhappy because I didn't have a lot of purpose or passion or anything like that. And when I kind of stumbled upon this business model that I had created, and then people started asking me to help, like I got really excited again. Because I get to help myself a few years back. And that's what I find really rewarding. So, but in the meantime, like here's the other thing. Work is so much more enjoyable when you don't have to do it. So when you get your passive income to support everything, you actually don't really mind working as much.
Yeah, no, definitely. I love that you mentioned that. And it's it brings up a pretty interesting point, right? About, having the passive income and having all the money. And a lot of people, I feel like, are being brought up with this victim mindset and the scarcity mindset of, that's bad. That's selfish. Like, why do you need all that money? Right. And how could we, some of us, especially coming from, very, very, poverty ridden back upbringings, kind of break free from that guilt trap that society tries to place on you for having, maybe more than someone else, or having passive income,
Mhm.
or having an excess, an abundance in life.
Yeah. And this is why I love people to read Killing Sacred Cows. It gets you to rethink what money is. Because I've had that mentality before, right? And when people say your net worth is your net worth,
Yeah.
I took that a certain way in like, well, I don't know anybody wealthy, right? I don't know anybody wealthy and therefore I'm screwed, right? And yeah, society has an impact on this kind of stuff. And it's really just, I found how wrong it is in so many levels. But money is just evidence of an exchange of value. Now, exceptions include there are freaking crooks out there. Definitely, right? And there are just a bunch of little rich a-holes that have whatever. But the bottom line is there's that's not common. It's not common. And usually those people get stung at some point and this and that, right? But the majority of people who have achieved it have worked really hard and they provided a lot of value to people. And take me, for instance, okay? I've helped people achieve very healthy lives. And there's a lot of fitness professionals who don't make much money, right? But there's no excuse for that. There's no excuse for that, right? And you don't need to be a martyr. I use that as a defense mechanism back in the day. It's not just about money. Well, of course it's not, right? I would have gotten into this, but it doesn't mean I can't be wildly successful. And the better I got at my craft and teaching people on how to make transformations and really make change in lives, the more I was able to charge. The more value I put in the marketplace, the money is just a physical representation of that. And then now, if I look at how I scaled the multiple locations, I do have minority partners in some. All of my employees are now getting paid way more than they used to, right? That's not wrong either. But the price had to be there for Shane, to be able to make that. For Ron to be able to make 120 grand a year, we've got to provide that kind of value, right? And so it's not just me that's making all the money, which is so important, right? But now I get to help all these other fitness professionals duplicate what I've done. And I'm getting really well financially rewarded for that. But the wealth I'm creating for them and then the results I'm getting their clients by extension, it's not a zero-sum game. Everybody is winning. Everybody is winning. And the creation of wealth is just a physical evidence of that.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that, because it's a creation, right? You hear everyone, not everyone, but some people talk about, right? We're creators, right? And when we're getting to this mindset of abundance, there's never a lack, because we create. They say in nature, where humans haven't meddled with, right? Everything is in abundance: the leaves, the trees, the bugs, the deers, the rabbits, the carrots, whatever, right? Everything is just in abundance, right? And when you're in that abundance, you create wealth. You're not taking the next man's food. You're not taking the next person's meal. You're not taking his money or his opportunity. He didn't sneak behind your back. And maybe there might be one guy who snuck behind your back and took one thing. But for the most part, when you're in that creative state, you're not taking from anyone. Everyone can, as you said, can eat. And there'll be more than enough food when you're operating out of that different framework and that different mindset of viewing things, which I got from what you were just talking about now. I love that you brought it up.
Yeah, there's no scarcity of money. It's just always there. And the more it exchanges hands, the better off everybody is, because we all give up our money for something that we value more, right? You give up your money to buy a bed because you don't want to sleep on the floor. It's worth it, right? You buy food because, right? The more money exchanges hands, the better, the absolute better. And everybody wins. That's why it was kind of invented in the first place. Right. And it's not a perfect system, right? Do government agencies and institutions pull their weight to do? Yeah. Right. Yes. There's some crappy things that go on. But trust me, there is so much opportunity for anybody out there if they just want to go for it. You just have to go for it. Everybody's starting a different place. Everybody. And, I was broke for a long period of time. I recently shared on a video, like the car I bought for $2,900, right? That didn't have a front bumper, that had 250 some thousand miles on it. I was driving that just a few years ago, right? Didn't have a front bumper, right? The fuel gauge didn't work. So I just had to guess. The starter was going out. So I had to crank that thing like 18 times until it finally gave out. I mean, like, crap, it's going to be like $500 to fix. Just keep creating value. Even if you work for somebody, how can I make their job easier or better or improve? I promise if you just keep adding value, you will get rewarded in some way, shape, or form. But you can't look at it like other people have what you don't have.
Yeah, they say comparison is the thief of all joy. And so, you mentioned if you just get after it, right, and you get the right mindset and, you do all these things, people still need a little bit of guidance, right? So if anyone wanted to, you've been dropping gems this entire episode. If people want to get some more of your guidance, if people wanted to connect with you, where could we find you at? Where could we connect with you so we could, tap into some more of the wisdom that you got stored that we didn't get to touch on today?
You got it. Find me on Instagram at Coach Scott Carpenter. And if you're in the fitness world, great. I mean, in my link tree, you'll see like my podcast to learn how to do this and my Facebook group and all that. And I will also talk about general investment stuff and growth and different things in there as well. And like your friend, like I can mail him one of the books. When we talk about something to engage an audience and get that book, eventually, this is not step 1 or 2 or 3 for most people, right? But that can be something that can really draw an audience to you. And you can provide, this is literally a blueprint. When we talk about an abundance mindset, sorry to hack this and just take this over, but this is my blueprint. You can take this and do this yourself. You don't have to hire me, right? So most people are like, oh my God, you're just going to give away all your stuff. Yeah, I am, right? If that person makes money from this, they could hire me outright, which happens. Or they'll make a bunch of money like, Matt, now I need to hire this guy and take it to the next level. Or they might never hire me. And that's great because I changed this person's life. They're going to make 50 to 100 grand more from that book, right? So anyways, at Coach Scott Carpenter is probably the best place to find me. And yeah, I don't have a huge Instagram following. It was created not long ago, but that's what all you kids use. So
yeah, no worries. But let's get right into actually I got a quick quote from Jim Rohn. He mentioned in a speech, he was like, Jim, why do you tell all your secrets or something like that? Someone asked him, and he was like, because only 10% of the audience will actually do anything with it. Right. Mm-hmm. And so, that's why, people like such as yourself can give back so much free game willingly because 1, most people won't do anything with it anyways. But 2, it's like when you come from that abundance mindset, the more hands, as you said, the money exchanges with, the better for us all, right? We all get better. And so now it's time for our final 4 questions. Question number 1, which I'm super interested to kind of hear your answer on, is what is the most impactful lesson that you've learned in life?
What is the most impactful lesson? Oh, that's a good question. I would say that the most impactful lesson that I have learned is that it's got to be rooted in stoicism. It's got to be like, you only need to worry about what is in your control, and that is it, and not what is outside your control. And really the only things that are in your control is your own thoughts and your own perceptions and your own actions. All you need to do is manage that. That relates to what we had just talked about with the external world and the culture and the victim mentality and the deck is stacked against me and blah, blah, blah. All that might be true, but it doesn't frickin' matter. What matters is what you choose to believe, the way you choose to perceive it, and the actions that you take. That's it.
What is the most admirable trait that a person can have?
Resilience. There's nothing I love more than an underdog. There's nothing I love more than somebody that bombed and failed or made horrendous choices. One of my business partners actually spent, I don't know how long, in jail. He should have been a statistic. He was for a while, right?
Yeah.
And he'll tell you, and this is kind of this stoic mindset, that him going to jail was the best thing that's ever happened to him because it changed the course of his life. Is he a convicted felon? Yes. Are things much harder for him? Yes, because of that, because you got limited out. Do I trust him more than anybody? Yes. the bottom line is he had every right to he grew up in a very impoverished area, didn't have parents, got into drugs, all that kind of stuff. But the route he chose completely dictated his life, and he's really successful. He's really successful now. Even though things are still hard for him, it's still hard for him to he can't even rent an Airbnb because of his background, right? Sucks. But that's something he can't control, right? Focus on what he can control, and look what he's done. It's incredible.
Amazing. If you had to change someone's life with one book, you kind of mentioned it, so I'm going to be surprised if you mentioned one of the books we talked about today. But if you had to change someone's life with one book, which one would you recommend?
I would go with The Obstacle is the Way. If you want more of a story, and it's not a Stoic book, but from a different angle, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
I heard a lot of good things about that one. I haven't read it yet.
Like, you'll probably cry a couple times. It's a Holocaust survivor. He's a psychologist, and he gives his accounts of the concentration camps and things like that. But his message and finding meaning in your own suffering is very parallel to Stoicism without it being that. So that's a really, really profound book.
And then the final question is, what is the legacy that you're trying to leave behind?
The legacy that I'm trying to leave behind is really one. You have one shot on this planet. You've got one, and you just need to go for it. The only thing that's holding you back, regardless of anything, is your own mind. And I've got, by Theodore Roosevelt, The Man in the Arena, that quote that's right over there in my office right there. And he talks about how it's not the critic that counts, right? Everyone out there's critics. I mean, this is ingrained in our culture now. It's on the news. It's on Twitter. It's everywhere. Everybody's just crapping on everybody, the other party, everyone else, all of that. It is the easiest thing in the world to be a critic. You know what is hard is to actually take action, to get in the arena, to fail, to look stupid, right? To get beat down by critics. But you're the one in the arena, right? Your face is marred by dust and sweat and blood as it gets in that. It's one of my favorite speeches, my favorite quotes ever in there. So really, you've got one shot at it. Don't live your life in fear. Just go for it.
Amazing, Scott. I was able to take away a ton personally for this episode. I loved and enjoyed having you on this conversation and the topics we're trying to able to touch on, and a lot of which we really didn't talk too much about so far on this podcast. So this is definitely going to be one of my favorite interviews personally. So I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you dropping all the knowledge that you had and just sharing with us some of your stories, some of your experiences, and some of the things you learned throughout your walk to wealth. And again, I appreciate you hopping on.
Appreciate it, John. Thank you.